These are the smartest players in all of Roblox. From earning millions of dollars to billions of visits to literally making history, they've done the impossible for this seemingly simple game. But to find out how they did all this and how it was even possible, I've spent the last year documenting their entire stories, confronting them directly, and compiling it all into one big movie, with each piece getting more and more shocking. But let's start off with something tame: the story of Roblox's #1 game. In 2019, a random dev made a small Roblox game expecting nothing, but to his surprise, this marked the beginning of the highest earning game with a massive community, many historical moments, and more. But to find out how this happened, we need to go back 7 years ago, when a player by the name of MyGame43 published his first successful Roblox game. For years upon years, he spent hours on game after game, only for them to die out. So after getting players on his biggest project yet, he was delighted. Still far from #1 though, but with the gameplay matching some of his biggest games nowadays, you can tell he's a man with a plan. But after working on the game for 2 years non-stop, MyGame thought of an idea that would change everything. You see, around this time was when games like Pet Sim, Bubblegum Sim, and Public Bathroom Sim always got praise. And knowing how to build cool games, MyGame had the brilliant idea to make a whole new group to create his own parkour sim. And of course, the game went crazy. That wasn't meant to happen. The issue with most simulators is that they get boring fast, and Parkour Sim was no exception. So at this point, he had option A and option B. He can either abandon Parkour Sim to grow his already beloved game. Smart choice. Yeah, that sounds good. Or completely scrap both to make a new game that'll likely fail if it's garbage. Wait, why would he do that? Considering his dream is to own the most popular game, there's no way he's doing this alone. Let's hope he makes the right choice. But while he decides his fate, let us meet our second main character, Rip Indra. Throughout these years, Indra has been like a brother to MyGame, helping him with games before they even got players. And just like MyGame, he's determined to make something great. So remember him for later. It's 2019 already? New year, new achievements, right? Well, not really, because their main game randomly stopped updating. Players were getting impatient, and with their projects fading away, you may think that MyGame and Indra gave up. But it's the complete opposite. Using the group they made for Parkour Sim, the two of them worked for months on a new game, Blox Piece, which is set to release in a month. The game is a combination of their last two, so it had to be good, and they knew the fans would love it.
How original. That game sucks. No. Just no. What about Elemental? Update Element. Can you update Element?
What?
Although the game wasn't out yet, players weren't happy. All they cared about was an update for Elemental Battlegrounds. Blox Piece's release can either go well, or embarrassingly horrible, making months of work and sacrifice for nothing. But if you truly want to be the best, you must always push forward. On June 7th, Blox Piece finally released. You cyberbullied these guys for money to buy fruits, which gives you powers in battle. The first players have joined, ready to adventure. Although their game was very simple, the pioneers somehow found ways to break it not even a day later. Like this guy rapidly switching his weapon, which somehow combines them. This may look like a bad thing at first, but these kinds of glitches make the game more enjoyable, which may help it grow later on. However, to be considered the #1 game, it needs to achieve all these goals. If MyGame and Indra want that title, they needed to play their cards right. Instead of something basic like a new egg, they added new fruits to the game, each with their own abilities. And to make grinding more fun, they also added 3 new islands, and each with their own enemies, helping players level up. Progress was being made, but all these updates would be useless if people didn't care. Thankfully, the players had other goals in mind. With money, you can buy the best fruits, weapons, and fighting styles, which were very fun to fight with. So to keep the game more alive, players kept finding strange ways to make money. Remember the islands I showed you before? Well, this one in particular led to a cool discovery. By simply going to this temple, breaking in, and running in circles, you can farm up to $7,000 per minute. Speaking of money, the devs were making tons of it, thanks to their special strategy. Instead of being like most devs and making random updates, they actually let us choose the updates. You gotta give people what they want. This went on for months, where more challenges, weapons, fruits, and even mysteries were rolled in. The community built hype around those with fun glitches, speedruns to max level, and long hunts for insanely rare weapons. We had a reason to play. The devs even redid a bunch of fruits to make the game more fresh. Everything seemed to be going well until... It's November, and the game hasn't updated in 3 months. Is Blox Piece just another abandoned Roblox project? Well, let's find out.
Today's the big day. I've been working for 3 months on this update, and it'll be the best thing anyone can feast their eyes upon. Here we go.
Welcome to the second sea. We got 5 new islands, a new level cap, a factory that gives you free fruits when raided, and of course new weapons. But best of all, they made a new rarity, mythical item, which made players spend hundreds of hours to get them. A great game must keep players playing. Like this guy spending 1 day straight, grinding for fruits in a new factory, and this other guy is speedrunning for 2 days for max level, which sets the stage for even bigger mega projects. So far, Blox Piece is off to a pretty good start. But to see if it's truly worthy to be the #1 game, let's see how it compares to an actual top game, War Thunder, the sponsor of this movie. It's a free-to-play epic military action game with ground, air, and naval combat. From the 20th century all the way to now, the game offers a wide range of military equipment like guided missiles, smoke screens, strike drones, and even a nuclear bomb. From ambushing enemies with helicopters to fighting amongst the clouds, you have freedom to play however you want, especially with the recent update, Seek and Destroy. The devs have been listening to their fans and cooked up a new aviation from the Benelux, including the Fokker G1A, new missiles with active radar homing, and 2 new maps for intense combat. So if you don't want to miss that, download War Thunder with my link below. If you haven't played for at least 6 months, you'll get rentals for the P-40E-1 aircraft, an M4 tank for a week, a special decorator, 100k silver lions, free premium vehicles for free, and a week of premium. The graphics and gameplay always improved, so check out the game now, because it only gets better from here. Now with all that said, back to the movie. I wonder how Blox Piece is doing. It's mid-2020, and with the game being completely revamped, the updates had to stand out, cause otherwise... Their first move was to add a huge new area, then build a lab on top that allows players to simulate raids. These raids come in handy because they give you fragments to awaken your fruits, basically a buffed version of them. But a smart move the devs made was starting their own channel. Not only did they leak future updates to build hype, they also filmed questionable videos like my game obliterating 5 admins with the new Quick Fruit Awakened with over 9,000 levels, then gets one-shotted by Indra's special admin powers, and all for a good 3 million views. Clips of admins trolling as well as a new feature brought insane traffic to the game, so the admins trolled even more by spawning a bunch of deadly sea beasts in someone's video, as well as showing off even more secret abilities you can only dream of having. Speaking of abilities, the community got so strong to the point where they would do anything for a good fruit. Like if you went on eBay and searched up Blox fruits, there's people selling accounts for ridiculous prices. $400 for a dough fruit, why do people buy this stuff? But on the flip side, we had people like the Great Ace, dedicating his life to rolling hundreds of fruits, just to give them all away like a Giga Chad. The next few months were pretty good. I mean, updates were kinda slow cause they only released every 6 months, but that doesn't mean the game was abandoned. The admins did mini updates to keep players hyped, like raising the max level and bounty which you get from killing players, adding a small island to the second sea, and funniest of all, making custom ranks you earn for killing YouTubers in game. With great game mechanics and a solid fanbase, the team decided to work on their biggest update yet. At this point, Blox Fruits was a cinematic universe, with 3 massive connected worlds and many new fruits in a new update. But we still have a problem. With the game being 1 step closer to #1, we're bound to have bad apples. You see, this whole time, the game didn't have trading. All you could do was drop your fruit and pray they trade you back. So in the update, the devs made a safe trading system. Each fruit had an official value, so you know if you're getting scammed. I don't know how much this helped, but it did make players go ballistic. Around this time, my game and Indra did something clever. The game was very competitive and players always compared them, so to gather attention, they 1v1'd with admin commands on a massive YouTuber's livestream.
Noob.
It's a new year, and when I say the game was making progress, I mean it. Cause history was being made left and right. For the first time, players broke Roblox itself. No, not just by crashing Roblox with a high player count. Every world had a level requirement, but players found a way to break into the third sea without a high enough level. By sailing to this island, beating up the Rip Indra boss and rejoining, the servers would break and somehow let you win. But the game's success was not only from glitches, but mega projects too. Remember the guy who gave away hundreds of fruits? Well, that same guy spent days making 100 accounts just to farm all these fruits to give away. Like, this is crazy. But unfortunately, the game trolled him, deleting lots of progress. But the game itself was progressing amazingly. Of course, we had the occasional screw up, like this glitch where a quest gave 10 times more XP than usual. But with fruit designs being out of this world and players constantly pushing the limits, the devs were ready for their biggest challenge yet. But to do this, they needed help from their trusty friend. Yeah, let me explain. While players were messing around, the devs spent a year on a 4-part update. Most notably, the new mythical leopard fruit, which players fell in love with. Knowing how strong the fruit is, they invented an interesting speedrun. You start with the worst fruit, then slowly trade up to leopard. This creative idea, along with many other parts of the update, brought many weird glitches and memorable moments, leading the game to 1 million players and 10 billion visits. At this point, most people would just relax and celebrate on their own. But you already know, the devs weren't most people. Instead, they made an entire event. You earn confetti to buy OP fruit, not only to celebrate how far the game has come, but to also attract and help new players. And big surprise, players made this into another way to grind non-stop. Like, come on guys, relax a bit. Oh, and speaking of new players, 2 of them were these random guys.
I've spent days upon days playing Blox Fruit. I'm max level.
Chandler, look, you are an absolute sweat.
Now we're in the current year, with viral events like an admin trolling a hacker live,
Get out of here, boy. Get her done.
YouTubers messing with admin, and this guy again rolling fruits for an entire month straight, and a future update that'll literally glow up the game. The community is stronger than ever. I guess hard work does pay off. I mean, yeah, hard work does pay off, but for every person who succeeds, 1,000 don't. There's definitely more to success than just working hard. Like how their brains work, their mental health, their personal experience with Roblox. We need to dig deeper, so instead of diving into one story, why not multiple? Imagine making millions of dollars by simply playing Roblox.
Nope, stop the video. That's literally impossible.
Are you sure about that?
That's just one of the few who turned their love for Roblox into billions of Robux, the largest games on the planet, real historical moments, and more. But to find out how they did this, we need to dive into their full stories one by one, beginning with Stickmaster Luke. Upon joining Roblox, Luke was your average 14-year-old kid playing games and having fun. But he wasn't happy being just a player. He wanted to make a game go big. His main goal with this was not just to get rich, but to also prove that with enough passion, you can bring a whole community together. Except, the odds of this happening were close to 0. We're talking about 2007. To give you a sense of this, here's an average game from our time. That was epic. How do you even make that? And compare that to one from Luke's time. What even is that? With nothing to work with, maybe his dream was already dead. But if you truly want to achieve your goals, you should never be afraid to take that first step. Welcome to the Underground War. Even with nothing, Luke tried his best. Despite its flaws, players somehow found joy out of terrorizing other players, which led to the game reaching a couple thousand visits.
This kid is going places.
Although it's not much, this was amazing for Luke, cause the thing is, Roblox back then paid you virtual money whenever someone joins your game. So instead of relaxing, Luke grinded out a butt ton of games in the following years, getting more players and more money from his fun, simple ideas, as well as showing them off on YouTube, which clearly worked. His original ideas sparked some of the most well-known Roblox players, so obviously he deserves some amount of fortune. But even with this money, he can easily lose it all if he didn't spend it wisely. No way you're spending all that Robux on one single hat. In hindsight, this may seem like a dumb move, but you'll see why it's genius. But to make the money back, Luke worked really hard on his games, making each one better than the last. But rather than making them flashy like modern games, he focused on making them replayable, meaning you can play them again and again and again without getting bored. This led to him reaching 10 million visits, meeting actual Roblox admins, and most importantly, buying a bunch of hats for some reason. But this would all change on one fateful day. It's 2011 and Luke got a message from a special person. Roblox himself?
I noticed your games are getting so much love from the community. Why not come work here?
Wait, this has to be fake. No way a child can work for Roblox, right?
We caught up
up with Luke Weber, Roblox's newest employee.
And all while being an 18-year-old kid.
Most of my friends are like flipping burgers and stuff like that, and I feel kind of bad for them because I actually got this opportunity for this great job and everything.
With this amount of power, he can easily abuse it when things don't go his way. But no, he stayed true to himself and kept learning how to develop. Thanks to this, he made even more Robux by selling his own items. But just as you thought he couldn't get richer, one of his oldest games randomly blew up. You may be wondering how a game this basic blew up 4 years later. Well, the answer is in the gameplay. Welcome to NDS. You spawn on this platform, get drafted to this island, and a random disaster is chosen to annihilate you and everyone you love. A bit repetitive, right? I mean, the game itself had a lot of glitches and didn't even update much, so you may think it'll die out. That guy is screwed. But these imperfections added to the randomness and funny moments made in the game. This is exactly what players wanted. The true magic of this game is that everything is completely random. You don't know what to expect, which makes it really replayable. But with the entire community at his fingertips, Luke needed to play his cards right. To prevent the game from getting boring, he added a multi-disaster machine. This allowed rich people to, bring hell down to earth, spicing up the game. But even with an update schedule worse than mine, the game still made a ton of money from players paying to win, and I am definitely not one of them. But even still, this wasn't Luke's biggest flow of Robux.
That is cap.
That would be the Hatsy bot. Back then, they were a lot cheaper, costing a few hundred Robux. But as time went by, the price of the hats, especially his Dominus, rose to millions, making him even wealthier. But despite the success, Luke remained humble and continued to help with huge events and kept his game simple, causing them to thrive. But even with billions of visits, the second most valuable account, and a fat pay from Roblox, there's far more impressive millionaires in our community. Unlike Luke, Snicktrix joined a lot later in time. He wanted to spice up Roblox because the games were getting stale. Although we had more players, we also had higher competition and higher standards for games. Oh yeah, and game visits no longer convert into Robux. But unlike most devs, Snicktrix did have experience with Minecraft servers and even made a cute Roblox farm game, which didn't get much, but combining these two ideas, he spent months working on a project that can fail or change his life forever. Most devs back then would create the same kind of game over and over and over. But Snicktrix took the risk of creating Minecraft-themed Roblox games. The first being Skyblock. You spawn on this tiny island and use what little you have to make something great. Despite the effort, Minecraft clones usually fail, so Skyblock started off slow. Never mind. Maybe it wasn't so bad to make something different, but Snicktrix was shocked at how fast his game blew up. Perhaps it was the great game mechanics or the progressive nature, but players started playing and money started flowing.
Minecraft actually costs money, but on this game you essentially get the exact same experience without having to pay any sort of money whatsoever.
This means that everyone can play it. More players, more money. But to keep the game afloat, the updates had to be creative.
And it could be the next big thing on Roblox.
This is unoriginal and disrespectful.
That's a bit of a stretch.
Roblox moderators should ban this game forever.
No way people agree with this.
This game keeps copying Minecraft.
Imagine copying Minecraft.
Copy of Minecraft Skyblock.
Imagine having a ton of original. Y'all stupid for playing a copy of Minecraft.
Okay, but this won't affect the game itself, right? Skyblock was all of a sudden gone. Players complained that they stole from Minecraft, so Roblox shut it down. With his biggest project dead, it seemed like Snicktrix will give up on his goal. But as a last-ditch resort, they changed the name from Skyblock to Islands, praying the ban would be lifted.
In business.
Using this second chance, he needed to play his cards right. With a whole website full of ideas, the team knew exactly what fans wanted.
What if we made it so players can visit other islands?
With better updates and better things to build in your island, players spend more time and money grinding out their base, leading to amazing creations bringing attention to the game. With everyone being obsessed with making the best base possible, you may think their game will never die out, but right as the new year started, they made the worst possible update. Since the game had so much content, players easily found ways to dupe items. This made everything less valuable, meaning less people will spend money on the game. To fix this, the devs wiped everyone's money and items. Players went ballistic, but can you really blame them? Imagine losing something valuable just because someone else broke rules. This led to many players quitting, and on top of all of that, the game got way too complicated with all these new items. With all this going on, you may think the team will call it quits. But instead of seeing this as a bad thing, Snictrix saw this as a chance to make something new and great. With the knowledge, money, and attention he got from islands, he spent months on a new game with the goal of getting emotions out of people, and that game was Roblox Bed Wars. Unlike islands, Bed Wars was a lot more competitive, cause instead of building and farming, you spawn on an island with infinite lives. If your bed breaks, you have 1 life left. Last team standing wins. Snictrix had a lot of faith in the idea, so they slowly drifted away from islands to focus completely on Bed Wars. But with that as their main source of money, they better not mess it up. First off, Snictrix knew Bed Wars copied Minecraft, so to avoid getting banned again, he spiced it up by adding a bunch of kits, each helping you win in-game. Since players were competitive, they spent millions of Robux on them. The devs get money and players have fun. It's a win-win, but there's still one issue. Kits cost Robux, so not everyone can use them. To fix this, he added a battle pass. By grinding the game long enough, you can unlock kits for free, but some players spent 15k Robux to instantly complete the battle pass. Hopefully this won't cause any problems. And on top of all of that, the team added enchants, which made the game even more insane. Yeah. These tricks, and the gameplay in general, always made players rage. To get revenge, they spent more money on OP kits. On the flip side, he made just as much from kit gifting. This allowed GigaChats to spend thousands of dollars gifting everyone kits. But also, Snictrix gets a percent of the money. More players equals more gifting equals more money. Another smart move from the devs was adding win streaks. Basically, how many times you win in a row. Because of this, players spent weeks building insane win streaks, having everyone cheer for them, only to lose it to a hacker, which, to be fair, added more hype to the game. But to keep Bed Wars alive for as long as possible, the devs had to update as much as they can. So throughout the year, every week they added game modes, kits, OP items, you name it. It seemed like every day there's some new game-breaking glitch, which made the game feel infinite. But all this hype led to an inevitable problem. Picture this. You stumble across Bed Wars for the first time. You join a match and hope to learn the ins and outs of... Considering we had 45 kits, it was nearly impossible for new players to play, because anyone can get these broken kits by spending crazy amounts of Robux. Players went ballistic over the unfairness. To fix this, the devs added relics, basically free upgrades at the start of each match. It's the right idea, but...
For the love of God, just remove relics, it's literally luck-based.
I forgot to mention, relics were chosen randomly. All it did was make Bed Wars luck instead of skill. Yes, the kits made millions of dollars, but if pro players and new players felt excluded, what's the point? Snictrix had a new goal, not to make as much Robux as possible, but to make Bed Wars truly fair for everyone. To do this, we need to figure out what made the game unfair. Firstly, no one likes fighting a tryhard with an unfair kit, so the devs made a kitless game mode, Murder in Bedtown, a murder mystery type game. And yes, in the past, we did have free-to-play game modes, but those still had tryhards and hackers, and no one likes that. Overall, Murder in Bedtown gave new players something exciting, because all you needed was to watch out for the murderer. But that wasn't enough. Next up, they made the better kits free, so new players had a chance to level up in the battle pass. For context, free kits go free each week, but they usually sucked. But even with these changes, a balanced game needs more balanced game modes. So the devs got to work on two special ones. The same kit mode where everyone has the exact same kit, and OG mode. Unlike all the other game modes, this one had no kits, no forge, and no unfair shenanigans. Because of their thoughtfulness, many old players came back just to play these game modes. I guess simple and fair always wins. But the best for last, the devs used an old feature from 2021. Custom matches. This lets you make your own Bed Wars game and spawn any item, which on its own kept the game alive for a bit. But the devs took it a step further by adding scripts, allowing you to modify your game and add basically anything. Like seriously, I honestly thought this wasn't possible for Roblox. This gave each player a chance to make their own game mode, and even make money by selling scripts. By giving players some kind of control, it's kinda hard for it to get boring. Unlike most devs, Snicktrick successfully made a fair and endless game. But even with 10 billion combined visits, 2 innovation awards in the same day, and a team of hardworking devs, there's always a bigger fish in the sea. While Snicktrick saw Minecraft as inspiration, Indra loved fighting games and saw them as inspiration. With this newfound love, him and his brother spent years in their garage, making anime fighting games and following their inspiration. But none of the games went far. However, all this work didn't completely go to waste. Along the way, they met a bunch of like-minded people.
We all want to make a successful fighting game. Let's put all our skills together and make this happen.
Now with some extra hands, he was able to create 2 pretty decent games. The first one kinda bombed, but it got recognized by a pretty special person. But as for the second one...
Might not last, but #1 PC game is pretty cool.
That was fast. Players love the game idea. All you gotta do is pick an element and start swinging. It's so simple, which means any player can get into it. But the billion-dollar question is, how will Indra stay on top? Yes, getting up was easy, but staying up is a much bigger challenge. Surprisingly, Elemental Wars wasn't his final vision of a Roblox game. Even with all of this, he was yet to reach his full potential.
This would be a cool Roblox game.
This is One Piece, one of Indra's favorite animes and conveniently, the #1 show in the world. Using the cool mechanics from his previous games, he and his team made a sequel, Blox Piece, with the goal of spreading his love for his favorite show. At first glance, Blox Piece looked a bit generic, but the real genius was in the gameplay. Since One Piece was so popular, Indra took a lot of things from the show and applied it to his game. With 12 different fruits that had abilities similar to the show, surely it'll appeal to the millions of One Piece fans. But to actually make them play, Indra made sure that all the mechanics were flawless.
Bro, they got the Buddha fruit? That's my favorite in the show.
Shut up and take my money.
Following the successful release, Indra continued to add fruits, islands, weapons, and NPCs based on the popular show. He also let One Piece fans decide the next update, which overall made the game more interactive and prosper financially. But after this, Indra completely switched his plan. Usually, he would do mini updates weekly, which players loved. But one day he thought,
what if we put all our effort into one big update instead?
That might work, but players will have to wait longer for updates. But if you want to stay on top, you need to take risks. So for the next 3 months, the team worked non-stop on their biggest update yet, hoping players won't forget them. With a second world, many new fruits, cooler weapons, and higher levels to grind for, players had so much to do, which led to them inventing the first major challenge. You start with nothing, buy a fruit, and only use that to get max level. Not only did this flood Indra's bank account, but also motivated new players, and gave the game promotion. But even with a very dedicated fanbase, Indra still didn't have an identity. He built his entire game from One Piece, which not only seemed unoriginal, but One Piece themselves were striking games that replicated them. To prevent having an islands moment, Indra rolled out another big update, completely revamping the game. From simple mechanics to the game name itself, Indra made sure it's still like One Piece but had its own blocky charm. That way, One Piece fans will still like it, but it may appeal to more players. Another way Indra expressed himself was giving back to people, mainly Axior, a longtime fan who made viral videos on the game. In return, Indra and his friends gave him front row seats to special admin powers. From flying boats to never before seen abilities. What made these clips surreal is that these powers are so different from the normal fruits everyone loved using. Not only did players obsess over them, but also made lore out of it. Since Blox Fruits had a whole story now, players stuck around to see the story develop. And develop it did. As time went by, players got more and more obsessed on the latest and greatest fruits, spending millions of Robux on private servers to grind levels in peace. Although Indra made a fortune from this, he didn't waste it on hats, cars, or drugs, and instead spent it on making bigger updates such as Fruit Awakenings, which basically buffs your fruit's abilities. You gotta act broke to stay rich. And although he didn't need to, he added YouTubers in the game as NPCs, a nice token of appreciation. But in the next 6 months, the game only updated one time. But the thing is, Blox Fruits didn't need as many updates. Each one was already massive, plus it was very replayable. With dozens of fruits and 2 massive realms to fight in, the possibilities were endless. Plus, it was easy for new players cause they can't get attacked. And just like before, Indra knew how to keep players hyped. Knowing how competitive the game was, he and his brother made 2 enemy clans, kinda like a friendly rival to keep players on their toes.
Where's this redhead? Time to die.
Okay, maybe not so friendly. While the devs stayed quiet, players sure didn't. Using their wild imagination, they came up with better and better PvP combos with the fruits and fighting styles from the last big update. This randomness made the game a lot more competitive, which is exactly what Indra would have wanted. Wow, if the game was this hype without updates, imagine what'll happen if... With 3 massive worlds and a new level cap, let's just say the 6-month wait was worth it. By spending more time on fruit designs, weapons, and pretty much everything, players were more motivated to spend days trying to get them. Not because it's from One Piece, but because of how awesome they look. But to make the community stronger, Indra added trading. Every fruit had its own value to prevent scammers. This made fruits like Pokemon trading cards rather than blocky weapons. But best of all, this inspired viral challenge videos where you start with the worst fruit and then trade your way to the best. After this, Indra wondered how big his game could get. His plan wasn't to squeeze money out of players, but to make the best updates possible and keep players playing. Cause if his fans were happy, he was happy.
So today I made over 100 accounts in order to spin for the new legendary leopard fruit in Blox Fruits. Let's see if we can get it or not. What are we gonna get? What an anticlimactic way to end off this video.
The new fruits took so long to get, which gave players a reason to keep playing. So following this, he added V4 Awakenings. Basically insane fighting abilities, but you need to follow an entire story for a chance of getting them, which not only added to the lore, but made fighting a lot more immersive. While Indra worked on the next big update, he took some time to realize Blox Fruits may have started with him, but it definitely outgrew him. Despite the effort he put into each update, he couldn't have gotten this far without the help of others. So to pay respects, he made a whole event to thank his fans for 10 billion visits, mailed a Rolex to Axior, and lastly, wrote a little poem to thank his brother for sticking around, even after years of failed games.
We struggled together, and now we shine together.
Oh, and speaking of shining, welcome to Update 20. For 8 whole months, Indra poured his heart into the update, so fans poured their hearts back into playing. The new fruits, locations, and bosses were so spectacular that it not only broke the player record, but also crashed Roblox 12 times that day. But the crazy part is, that's just part 1 of Update 20. Considering he's always planning ahead, I'm sure Indra will have many more years of bringing joy to players and YouTubers, and inspire other devs to do the same. I guess true passion always wins in the end.
We did it, boys.
But this platform is not all sunshine and rainbows. Some people aren't so lucky with their games. From reaching the top of the top to literally losing it all, they've learned as much, if not more, than those who actually succeeded. And hey, If you want to learn how to succeed, you must learn how to fail. Imagine owning the largest Roblox game, ranking millions of dollars and billions of visitors, only to lose it all. Sadly, this happens to many beloved games, and for reasons you might not expect. So, to find out why this happens and how to prevent it, we need to dive into the stories of fallen Roblox games. Beginning with Meep City. Wow, that looks different. What started as a passion project by the player Alex Neutron quickly became a rising Roblox game. But wait a minute, you may be wondering how a game this plain blew up in 2016, a time when games like this were on the rise. Alright, let's throw our preconceived notions out the window and actually analyze the game. Despite having a basic design, the game had infinite things to do. You can chat, work humble jobs, and start a family. With zero rules, players were fully in control, which hopefully won't backfire. But even with all this, Alex wanted to give players something to grind for. Money. So he added mini-games to keep players playing, like puzzles, races, fishing, you name it. Overall, the game was a nice way to have a break from your troubles.
Look how amazing that looks, oh my goodness.
Meep City is officially a year old. Most of Alex's games would die by then, but Meep City's endless gameplay made it stand out. But to prevent players from losing interest, the devs added one important feature: parties. This allowed you to invite your friends to your house and have a fun time with them. A totally innocent feature that definitely won't be—
Bro! What are you yapping about?
Yeah, it's probably nothing. After 2 years of consistent updates, Alex broke the limit of how big a Roblox game can get. The updates themselves weren't the craziest, but the main thing carrying the game was parties. Since players can host their own games, Meep City became more player-driven and infinite, which made it the first game to reach 1 billion visits. And of course, his fans were proud.
The online data overlord.
Wait, what?
Are you sure? Incredible?
LOL promoting online datas.
Humanity is doomed. Ban Meep City.
Oh my god, no please! What the f—
Are we looking at the same thing here? Time for an investigation. Surely a game this innocent couldn't possibly get this much hate.
Anomaly detected.
But aren't parties the reason why the game is so popular?
What the hell?
Why did I open that? Yes, parties were crucial for the game's success, but at the same time, made the game very unsafe for children, cause the parties had questionable items that enabled this kind of behavior. I mean, what do you expect when a game has 0 rules and is completely controlled by players? Despite this red flag, Alex continued to grow his game with the issues in the back of his mind, but at what cost? As the numbers rose, so did the dangers. I really hope something is done about this, otherwise who knows what'll happen. Due to the insane backlash, exploiters had a motivation to attack the game, which made it more unsafe for children. At this point, Alex had 2 options. He can either remove parties to save his reputation, or maximize his growth by harming more children. Although he can't control what players do, his ignorance of the game's rules and features certainly played a part, leading to one final blow. With his biggest game that he spent years on dead, Alex was confined to one last option: Although it wasn't ideal for performance, it was the right thing to do. Surprisingly, Alex got his game back, but with some consequences. Without parties, the game was 90% less popular, but I guess it was worth it for the safety of players. But even with this change, the game still has these kinds of people. I guess the damage was already done. Wow, 3 times did this massive game get abandoned. 3 times, even Meep City still updates. Our story begins when 17-year-old Preston had a goal to make as much money as possible from Roblox games, so he spent months on a new game, Pet Sim. The aim was to collect money with your pets, and use that money to get even better pets and zones to earn more money. The game immediately took off thanks to how colorful and grindy it was. Players spent thousands of dollars and hundreds of days grinding for the best pets.
Oh man, that's a lot, wow.
But as time went by, Preston got tired of making the same updates over and over again. So to fix this...
I'm gonna kill my game to make a sequel.
You're joking, right?
Surely it has to do good.
You may be wondering how a sequel to a massive Roblox game failed. I mean, the game is also colorful and grindy, so how could this even happen? Well, compared to the previous game, Pet Sim 2 barely had any zones to grind for. This caused players to not only get bored, but also mad, cause by paying Robux, you can access the next update, which was kinda unfair. But the biggest problem was broken promises. After months of hype, Preston abandoned the game after 4 updates, mainly because of how hard it was to make something this perfect. You can't make promises you can't deliver on. With the fall of Pet Sim 1 and 2, it's time for Preston to retire the Pet Sim brand. Despite finding instant success, Preston made a few blunders, causing Pet Sim to vanish. So at this stage, most devs would throw in the towel and peacefully retire.
So, what was that about me retiring?
Rather than fully killing the franchise, Preston adapted and learned from his mistakes. For many months, he carefully crafted a new game, Pet Sim X, a combination of Pet Sim 1 and 2, but with way more zones and pets during release. And unlike last time, Preston had all the ideas ready to go. But to actually turn them into updates, the team had an interesting strategy. Rather than stressing on making each world perfect, they made each zone smaller, which allowed them to make more of them in total. When it comes to Roblox games, players don't expect perfection. They just want to have plain fun. Following the successful release, every week he added better and better pets, each getting more difficult to grind for. Oh, and not to mention the occasional Easter eggs, which always got players talking.
Cheers to the start of an incredible journey.
But in the midst of all this, there's still one question that hasn't been answered. Instead of wasting time on a whole new game, why not simply change the old one? Well, here's a hint. By making a new game, he had a reason to build more hype, which means more money. I mean, it makes sense, considering these new game passes make it very unfair for poor players. So now the question is, what happens when a money-hungry owner has a growing Roblox game?
Introducing Pet Sim X NFTs.
Time to get the game deleted, I guess.
Okay, to fully understand this issue, we need to go back to the reasons why games never die. A big reason being a safe environment. Sure, Pet Sim looks cute on the outside. You hatch pets, upgrade pets, and use them to get rich. But if you look into it, the game sort of promotes gambling. Imagine spending millions of Robux for a slim chance of getting an OP pet, only to be disappointed. This drained thousands of dollars from kids. Out of rage, they did some digging and learned about Preston's history of games.
Why should I spend my time and money on a game that'll likely be abandoned?
Sure, games like Blox Fruits and Murder Mystery have gone months without updates, and players still love them. But that's because those games have no end goal, making them last forever. But in Pet Sim, once you grind all the way to the final zone, what's there left to do? But surely, none of this matters as long as he keeps updates coming. Right? Ignoring all the drama, he continued to add stronger pets and better worlds. Who could have guessed? But most importantly, a 10,000 Robux game pass allowing you to equip infinite pets instead of the usual 8. Which may seem good, but the problem is, the ability expires in 72 hours. Nice one, Preston. But after this, things took a sharp left turn. The game completely slowed down on updates. This was a massive problem considering how repetitive and formulaic the gameplay was. Without new worlds, most players had time to reach the final zone and completely stop playing. Following a sharp decline in players, Preston returned with a few interesting updates here and there, but this was only short-lived. Which begs the question, at the height of it all, why is he now abandoning his game? Well, for one, the more money he makes, the more comfortable he gets, which means he wouldn't grind as much. Cause if you compare him to other legends, there's a big difference. For example, Rip Indra grew the largest Roblox game by helping players, putting his heart into updates, and making the most insane experience for content creators, regardless of how big his game gets. But on the flip side, Preston makes a cash grab update once a month and dips. Instead of making the best experience for others, he's focused on making the best money for himself. So it's much harder to be truly passionate, causing him to give up after some time. And even doing selfish things like striking games inspired by him. But what if I told you, those aren't even the biggest reasons for the game's decline. You see, Preston's initial idea was good, but it's basically the same process a billion trillion times. Once your brain finds a pattern in something, you're inevitably gonna be less interested. The main idea sets an expectation for successful simulators, a never-ending cycle of the same mundane task. But since Preston started this whole trend, it's time for him to end it. And if you don't know what I mean... Welcome to Pet Sim 99. Unlike his last free games, almost every world has a custom minigame that gives you something to do. And although the game does have gambling, the devs made up for it in an interesting way. Instead of spending thousands of Robux on game passes, you can trade pets for diamonds, which you can then use for special power-ups, like equipping more pets and more pet damage. Plus, once you're at the final zone, you still have all these extra side quests, which players actually turned into a fun competition. With more community bond, Preston was motivated to pour his heart into updates and make them spectacular. So, despite his history, we should all give him another chance to make something great, as long as he continues to learn and adapt. But if we look at the big picture, the fall of these different Roblox games have one thing in common. Since both devs were so focused on money and growth, they completely neglected the well-being and safety of players. At the end of the day, it's cool to get rich, but it's even cooler to do that by putting love, time, and care into your work and community. And speaking of that, I truly love making these kinds of videos, so if you want to... Well, that was a pretty happy ending, ironically. But not everyone is lucky enough to have one. Some legends don't even have the chance to say goodbye. Imagine being adored by millions online, only to abandon them forever. Believe it or not, many Roblox players spent years building up their name, only to vanish at the height of it all, and for reasons you might not expect. So, to find out why they did this and where they could be, we need to dive into their full stories one by one. Starting with Azu5573. An average kid who joined Roblox for the very first time, ready for the wonderful adventures that'll... what are you guys doing here?
Oh my gosh, it's a zoo!
Azu, please friend me.
No way I got in your server.
No way I met you.
Hold up, why are you crowding this innocent player? Wait, what's that music? Well, I guess that explains it. Turns out this random kid is the billionth Roblox user, which was pretty big for the entire community, and especially for Azu. Azu loved all the attention she was getting. Well, at least for the time being. After a while, she noticed how valuable her account truly was. Literally a once-in-a-lifetime chance. She couldn't possibly let anyone ruin it. So to be safe, she cleared her friends list. But despite that, players still kept pestering her for obvious reasons.
I no longer be accepting friends. At all.
Yeah, surely your secret account will be safe now. Right? Well, even with this warning, a player somehow stalked Azu in a game and filmed it. Except she was acting a little bit off.
I have to tell you something depressing. Don't say this to anyone.
It's time to investigate. The video's title says Azu got password guessed, a form of getting hacked. Her worst fear. That's a pretty bold claim, so we need at least 2 pieces of evidence. After she acted weird, Azu, or who we think is Azu, was asked,
"How'd you get into the account?"
and answered with,
"I just got the password."
So someone may have guessed her password and logged into the account.
So, you're not the real Azu?
I hate to say it, but she could have been hacked by someone who's jealous. But, at the same time, she could have easily lied to get people away from her. She did want to protect her account. I mean, that's something a normal kid would do, right? Well, we're forgetting a major piece of the puzzle. Her Roblox game, or her home as she says. In this game, you would expect something normal, considering she's an average player. I think. But if we join her game for 10 seconds... yeah, this doesn't match up. Yeah, I'm out. With all this evidence, it's safe to say she just got hacked. But strangely enough, the creepy game was made on the exact day she joined Roblox. This may seem small, but it makes the story a lot darker. You see, if she was acting normal the entire time, how can she possibly make a game this scary right when she joined? This could mean one of 2 things. Either 1, Azu is a pretty disturbing kid. Okay, probably not. Or 2, she was immediately hacked right as she joined without even knowing. Thankfully, there's one more piece of evidence I forgot. The guy in the video from before also stated Azu logged out of her account for a whole month after she joined. Theoretically, she could have logged out after making the account, only for someone else to hack in and make the creepy game, without her knowing, of course. And after a month, she logged back in and realized she was famous. So she took safety measures, only for her to get hacked again, as seen in this video. So from that point on, she's been exiled out of her special account for half a decade. The situation is honestly really sad. She's just an innocent kid who happened to be the billionth user. So lots of bad apples took that away. To this day, we don't know where she is or what she's up to. So let's hope our next story ends off on a happier note. Unlike Azu, Ripple didn't join as some legendary player with everyone crowding him. In fact, he joined in 2008, one of Roblox's deadest times. But for Ripple, Roblox was a sandbox game, a canvas for creativity, and he wouldn't let his time stop him from creating something great. So with the help of his loyal brother, they began to work on game after game, with the goal of making something out of this small platform. But since it was 2009, none of them really surfaced. However, that's when an idea hit him.
What if I took inspiration from a bigger game than Roblox?
This is the PS1, a legendary game console with one of its biggest games being Destruction Derby, which he was a pretty big fan of. With this fun idea, Ripple morphed it into a brand new game, Roblox Derby. The game was simple. You spawn with a car, and your only goal is to crash into as many people as possible. This gives you points to level up your car. For legal reasons, I must clarify that this isn't Roblox. Well, for some odd reason, players found satisfaction out of vehicular assault.
I have a bulldozer!
Causing the game to reach 7 million visits, which at the time converted to 700,000 Robux, a nice motivation to keep things going. By doing something that works and something you love, you're destined to succeed as long as you keep going at it. But as time went on, he noticed that other games beat him in competition. But being the dedicated dev he was, he used his money to grind out a new game. But unlike all the other games, this one had way more potential. It was way ahead of its time, but to fully understand how, let's compare it to a modern game, Star Rail Simulator. Similarly to Ripple, the owner was inspired by Honkai Star Rail, a popular RPG. He turned it into a Roblox game where your goal is to defeat monsters to get credits for stronger abilities. And as for Ripple, he was inspired by every Roblox game, so we combined them all into one big idea which no one has ever thought of. Ripple minigames. How this game works is you and your friends are selected to play a random minigame with its own special game mode and vibe. Likewise, Star Rail Simulator is split into two main areas, each with their own vibes. And on top of that, a boss. Beating them gives you rewards to proceed to the next world. It's a clever parody of the actual game, so right off the bat, fans of Honkai flock to the game's release. But as for Ripple, with over 30 minigames, it's not a surprise that the game quickly did numbers. The games were all simple, so people outside of Roblox noticed it, and especially Roblox himself, which you'll see why it's important. Every year, Roblox hosts a special event, Egg Hunt, which everyone loved. To do this, he chose his favorite games to hide them, one of them being Ripple minigames. Immediately, players flocked to the game to find the eggs, but while doing so, got obsessed with the various different minigames it had to offer. Overnight, the game was hitting record numbers. Ripple was thriving, players were playing, and even Roblox himself was happy. With the game bringing life to the platform, this seems like the start of an incredible journey. But during all the success, one player in particular was heavily inspired and thought,
"Surely I can make my own version of this."
Just like how Ripple was inspired by Destruction Derby, Typical was inspired by Ripple minigames. It's a beautiful cycle, so a few weeks later, he made Epic Minigames, a near perfect replica of Ripple's, except with better maps, better game modes, and better marketing. Now that I say it, it seems kind of threatening to Ripple's game. But let's not be negative, I'm sure they'll totally coexist in harmony. Despite their competition, both games grew at the exact same speed, except Epic Minigames was more frequent with updates. Every week, they added more creative minigames, which even the Roblox staff really loved.
These devs seem dedicated. We should include them in our official events.
Huh? So in June of that year, Epic Minigames had its first event, where players get a special item from playing the minigames. This was a genius move, because Roblox back then was getting tons and tons of new players, and the minigames themselves were easy to understand. This did wonders for Epic Minigames, so a few months later, Roblox included them in another event. And another... and wait, I feel like we're missing something. Isn't this video supposed to be about... Oh. After all the support, Epic Minigames assembled a way bigger team, leaving Ripple in the dust. So he passed his crown and quietly moved on. But he was far from done. Just like his first success, he took inspiration from another one of his favorite games, Rust, a multiplayer survival game. The idea was pretty simple, so with a small team, they made a whole new group called Rovive, spent a year passionately working on the map and weapons, with the hopes of this game finally getting... Aw, come on. You may be wondering how a guy Roblox loves got banned. Well, this began when a fan made their own group inspired by him, but the group in question made a game completely ripping off Pokemon. Roblox thought it was Ripple's group and punished him instead. Attempt after attempt, Ripple angrily tried to get his stuff back, but to no avail. But after days of pestering, he got his account back, but he saw the platform in a different light. Ever since, he was getting less and less active with his game, until he completely disappeared. If you go to his main game, it's still up, but his profile is completely banished. Perhaps Roblox banned him again, but if you go to his Twitter, he says he's permanently retired. People claimed this was because he allegedly scammed his team for Rovive, which could explain a lot. With all this spreading around and his throne being taken, it's honestly kinda sad. But a clue he left behind caught me off guard. According to a website that saves data, Ripple states he's no longer enjoying Roblox and only wants money. So these issues really killed his passion, causing him to focus more on life. But either way, after pioneering a new type of game, helping with huge events, and bringing life to the platform, he's definitely made his mark. So let's hope he inspired the new generation to do the same. Well, we're in luck, cause our next player might do just that. Just like Ripple, he's driven, dedicated, and determined to make Roblox games. Cause years before, he's been a fan of them, but none of them truly stood out. So, he wanted to be as different as possible with his games. To make myself and Decabox more clear, let's investigate his earliest game. The game was simple. You can morph into a baby, teen, adult, then do whatever your heart tells you to. What can possibly go wrong? On the surface, this seems like another plain, boring roleplay game.
But didn't you just say he's different?
Quiet. Cause here's where the twist comes in. Unlike most of these devs, Decabox was brave enough to give another player, Albert, admin, who just so happens to be the biggest Roblox YouTuber. With this special power, Albert used it to do some pretty nice things.
I just want to break the server for them because I don't think they should be playing right now.
Okay, maybe not so nice. But with the game's nonchalant nature and Albert's excessive trolling, players were on the edge of their seats. He also added a game pass for admin commands, and as Decabox expected, his viewers crowded the game. Quickly, his basic roleplay game became a haven for experiments, like griefing, spying, and abusing.
Just die, dude!
But it's all in good fun, and it brought life to Decabox's hard work, and especially his other roleplay games. Despite the money he made, that didn't matter at all to him. What actually mattered was people having fun in the games he made, and he was especially thankful for Albert helping him out. But every action always has an equal force against it. Okay, in simple terms, the more players the game had, the more it got pushed on Roblox. Since the game was a roleplay game, a lot of online daters found it and used it for questionable activities, which made it impossible for normal players to have fun. Oh, and not to mention, this happened in every one of his roleplay games. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Everyone thought Decabox was responsible for this. In retaliation, trolls infested his game with bots and framed Decabox for doing it. And just like with Ripple, Roblox believed he actually did it and banned his account, which locked this group that had all his games. Reasonably, he was upset, very upset in fact. Not because his group had 3 million Robux, but because he worked so hard to build it and no amount of money can get it back. But after getting support from his fans and the biggest YouTubers, he was determined to pick up where he left. So right away, he made a new account named Decapad. Thankfully, he saved some games in an RBX file and was able to re-upload them. But players still found it and reported him. Although he was mad at this, it didn't stop him from making new accounts.
What if we try this one more time but have the games, and group under a different name?
That's actually brilliant. No way the mods will detect it. No. Surely, there must be more to this than online daters. Players must have found worse reasons to report him, cause the ban reason says he sold Robux for real money, a massive violation of the rules. But according to Decabox, all he did was trade his friend expensive items, but Roblox thought he sold it for real money.
Would he be selling the limited if he ends up getting them back? I don't think so.
Even after proving his case, the admin still did nothing.
Unban Decabox!
He didn't do anything.
He doesn't deserve this.
Ban after ban, he lost more and more hope. Until... you get the picture. But instead of dwelling on the negative, we should all be happy with what he tried to do. In the short span of a year, he kickstarted the biggest Roblox series for millions to enjoy, paved the way for current roleplay games, and made a living off of Roblox, and especially for others. Enough to enjoy his retirement and live his life to the fullest, so we shouldn't let trolls take that thought away. Although we don't know where he is now, I think it's best to respect his privacy and honor him as a person, and let him move on to a new chapter of his life. Man, I wish there was a better way to tell these success stories. Everything is based on my interpretation, so it's not as insightful. Alright, hold on, I actually have an idea.
I would love to be interviewed for a vid.
What better way to hear success stories than from the people who lived them? It's time for another investigation. So what's the secret to becoming a Roblox billionaire?
Well, it's actually quite simple. First, you gotta...
Yeah, right. No one can make that much money from a stupid Lego game.
Well, my friend, you're dead wrong. That's just one of the few who turned their love for Roblox into billions of Robux, the largest games on the planet, real historical moments, and more. But to find out how they actually did this, we're gonna investigate them one by one.
I was getting so really burnt out by the end of it because...
find their secrets, how do you get ideas?
From my dreams.
And dive into their full stories to finally answer the question, how to become a Roblox billionaire.
Yo, CubeINC, how are you?
I'm doing well. Manib, man himself.
Yeah, I'm doing good also.
Well, let's get right into it. So, how do you make your money?
I make my money from Roblox games. My most popular game is Catalog Avatar Creator, and how I earn from that is I get a commission from each time somebody buys an item inside of my game.
With 2 billion visits and hordes of active players, it quickly rose to the second most earning game out of the billions of Roblox games out there.
I still can't comprehend it.
But now I have even more questions. How can a game so empty attract so many players? What makes them spend so much money on it? And what led to its creation? He must have known something that no one else did, and I want to find that out. So let's start off with the early times. Starting as an average player, how'd you get into making Roblox games?
So I saw that each game was made by like another player on the platform. So that kind of inspired me to make my own game because I had this ambition to like create a front page game one day and become popular. So that's what got me started into making games. I actually started learning scripting when I was 10 and a half or 11 years old.
The beauty of this is that working hard at a young age already puts you ahead of everyone else. So imagine what he could accomplish while still being a kid. But starting as a child came with some inevitable problems.
I was very young back then and there was a lot of things that I didn't know how to do. The main challenges are probably like trying to learn scripting. Every now and then there are bugs that come up that sort of just crash you down. I think a few bugs have made me quit working on games completely because of how frustrating they were.
Giving him a bad first impression of making Roblox games.
And you know, you have a rough time fixing them.
So to take his mind off of this hot mess, he looked back at the games that inspired him, which gave him an idea.
Pretty much all of my first games were me trying to remake all of the popular games. I remember trying to remake Murder Mystery on my own.
Which may seem dishonest, cheap, and lazy. But it's all for a good cause though.
Yeah, I was just pretty much trying to remake it so that I can gain experience on my own, game systems.
Giving him the knowledge he needed to make his first proper game.
So my first game that I made was called Laser Quest. It's basically a shooter game where you're on a team and you have to fight the other team to achieve victory and be the last team standing.
A perfect way to learn how to develop while making friends.
And it probably got a few hundred or maybe 1,000 visits in total now.
Never mind. The harsh truth was, Muneeb was a small fish in a massive sea. And with the big fish getting award after award, praise after praise, what makes Muneeb any special? But even when no one noticed your work, what pushed you to keep going?
The main thing that pushed me was my friends that were playing it with me. We had a lot of fun times testing and playing the game and battling each other inside of Laser Quest. And yeah, that inspired me to keep working on it and add new maps and new skins.
So from there, how would you approach making Roblox games? Was there a strategy or a secret?
I think the main thing to get a successful game is to put yourself in the perspective of the player. If you wouldn't be having fun playing your own game, then the chances are somebody else probably wouldn't be too. And make sure that the overall feeling of your game is also something super nice and easy to use and fun to play. That's what's going to make people stay in your game and also join back if they had fun playing it.
As time marched on, the very friends who kept him going,
the main thing that pushed me was my friends that were playing it with me,
vanished.
Most of them have stopped playing Roblox, so I kind of lost contact with them because they just grew up a bit away from the platform.
Imagine that. The very thing that brought you and your friends together lost its charm, completely demotivating you from doing anything. And to add more salt to the wound,
me as a popular game developer now, that's not something that I was always. I started off somewhere as well, and in fact, I've actually had a lot of failed game releases, dozens of games that I've released that have flopped. So yeah, you gotta keep trying and trying again.
I think you've all heard the saying, once you're at rock bottom, the only way you can go is up. That's if you find the right time to strike.
Okay, so story games were actually quite a big trend back in 2019. They were super popular. There were games like Camping and Airplane Story.
For context, these games basically throw you in the middle of a story, and your goal is to beat some sort of villain.
Which had a lot of popularity out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's free real estate. Muneeb saw potential. Story games were a cheap and guaranteed way to get popular, much more than last time. But that's the problem. They can only be played so many times before players finish the entire story. They would then beg for more and more and more, stressing out the owner. Even popular story game devs have a history of burning out.
So that inspired me to make my own story game. My first story game that I made was Vacation Story, and that was in fact my first game that actually blew up and got me out there as like a developer.
Let's go. But what made players notice your game in particular? Surely there must have been thousands of story games.
Yeah, so as far as the storyline goes, I try and make my story games have a lot of different things, a lot of different scenes that you can play through as a player. There was another game called Airplane Story, which was the popular one. But in that story game, you're just stuck on the plane for the whole duration.
Yeah, this is fun.
Which is why in my Vacation Story game, you start off in the plane, but then you end up crashing onto an island. Then you have to go through survival on the island.
And just like any businessman would, Maniv made a bunch of game passes to help you live and reach the end of the story, which most eventually did. Yay.
And because it was my first game that succeeded, I went on to make more and more story games, such as Daycare and Daycare 2.
I mean, I did say it was stressful, but maybe he can handle it? And eventually, players finished that one too, which led to an endless cycle. Basically, Maniv found a game style players loved and made the best possible version of it by combining many popular game modes. You gotta steal like an artist, but the main thing keeping his games afloat is the players trying to make lore out of it, like coming up with game theories about the storyline.
Yesterday, a daycare has been attacked by a big monster. Reports say the child had managed to escape.
That's why I made a lot of story games.
Yeah, a lot.
When I first started creating games, I've been working on story games. But then when I was making Daycare 2, I was getting so really burnt out by the end of it because I wasn't really doing it for fun anymore. It's just because I was kind of forcing myself to make a new story game because, you know, a lot of people were, you know, asking for Daycare 2.
So from there, how do you bounce back into being motivated again?
What I did was I took a break from that. I started working on other games like Mega Hide and Seek and Catalog Avatar Creator. It was like a new avenue for me.
And even though it was a massive risk for him,
it was something completely different and I had so much fun making it. You know, I put a lot of effort and like passion and love into it. If you're gonna make a game, work on a game that you have passion for. Work on something that you'd have fun making, because otherwise you're just gonna burn yourself out and probably end up not touching game development again.
So following his own advice and using his raw knowledge, he began to work on his next big project, Catalog Avatar Creator. Not for fame or money, but for a reason he genuinely cared about, and a pretty serious one at that.
When you're shopping on the marketplace, you can't equip multiple items at the same time, and you also can't see how the character will feel when you're actually playing a game and walking around with it.
Yeah, that is so annoying. For context, Roblox always had this problem where some items in the avatar shop look good on display, but once you actually wear it, you basically got scammed. And what's worse is that once you spend your money, there's no shot of getting it back.
I started looking for alternative avatar editor games that I could use, and all of them were kind of, you know, finicky or like not as great to use. So I decided to make my own version, which was super simple and easy to use. And that's how Catalog Avatar Creator was born. And yeah, overall, the experience of creating an avatar in my game is much more easier than on the Roblox website.
Unlike in that, you can try any outfit for free in-game to see if you like it, then buy it as your official avatar.
I think the main thing is that it combats the problems that people have with Roblox's avatar editor.
Since this game solves a common issue, players had no choice but to play. In just a matter of weeks, he already gained a few thousand players. But despite that, the game lacked any substance. It only existed as an avatar editor. There was no real bond between players, which is never good for any game.
And I think the popularity of my game also boosted after I released community outfits, which is like a public catalog of outfits that are pre-made for you. So if you search up for something, it'll literally give you hundreds of outfits that you're looking for in a second. People can find an outfit they want pretty much instantly without doing any work to create it.
Yeah, that'll save so much time and money. Not only did this strengthen the community, players finally had the chance to show their creations to the world. And I mean millions upon millions of people. He didn't want to hog the fame for himself anyways.
That was the feature that sort of carried my game from like 10k players to where it is now, like 40k.
Let's go, man.
It's providing like a new solution for avatar editing, which is what made it really, really popular.
And you bet money rolled in, more than ever.
I get a commission from each time somebody buys an item inside of my game.
Although anyone else would obsess over that, Manib had other priorities.
There are definitely more problems out there that can be solved by users creating games. To be fair, there was an issue of people trying to donate to each other, which has been solved with his game, Please Donate. I made another game called Friend Checker, which solves the issue of you, like, managing your friends list, I guess.
Manib finally found his true passion, making millions by using his games to help other players.
Like, it means the world to me, honestly.
Where do you see this in 5 years?
Definitely I will still be on the platform. The Roblox community is like very supportive, and having a fan base for my game who's always so nice to you, it just sort of motivates you a lot. And yeah, the support I've received from the community is overwhelming.
And the winner is, for Best Use of Fashion, Catalog Avatar Creator!
Hey everyone, my name's Manib and I'm so honored to receive the award for Best.
So Manib, following all the success, what's one piece of advice you'd give to the viewers right now?
If you have a failure, see it as a stepping stone, because from each of my failed games, I learned a lot of scripting and modeling experience, and that experience helped me to work on my future games. And yeah, it gives you the potential to eventually one day reach there and achieve your goals.
Amen. While Manib's advice is definitely helpful, it doesn't fully answer our main question. To truly understand the truth of success, we can't look at this from just one side. Well, Manib, thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
But before we part ways, I need to know one last thing. Should the viewers subscribe to the channel?
Yeah, everyone watching the video right now, be sure to smash the subscribe button for more awesome content like this.
That's right, you guys heard him. We're trying to hit 1 million subs this year, and I have some awesome content planned. So, subscribe. Now, Manib might have been impressive, but then again, he's not the only brilliant billionaire to learn from. The more, the better. Hey, Chunch Bunch, how you doing? I've heard a lot about you, so let's just get into it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, how do you make your money?
I make my money through Roblox games, and Blade Ball is definitely the biggest thing I've created.
In a mere 60 days, Blade Ball became the fastest game to hit 1 billion visits, a milestone that you can only dream of. And although this sounds like one, in reality, it has its own set of nightmares.
The amount of passionate hate for Blade Ball is unparalleled.
Yeah, since the game came out of literally nowhere, players were so quick to hate.
Are pay-to-win games ruining Roblox? Recently, this discussion popped up again thanks to a little game called Blade Ball.
Including me. And because it happened so fast, the owner never had a chance to share his side. But that changes right now. We could learn a thing or two from his story, so we gotta separate the art from the artist. Alright, so what's the backstory behind your life-changing project?
It was kind of a jumbly story, but basically I was wondering why there weren't any big air hockey or pong games on Roblox. That seemed really fun, so I did some research and stumbled upon heat-seeking ball games.
For context, heat-seeking ball games are basically ping pong, but with a moving ball of death.
That mechanic was captivating. So my best friend Vido and I wanted to put our own spin on it and bring it to Roblox.
The only problem was, Chunch had no idea how to start. There weren't many heat-seeking ball games on Roblox to take inspiration from, so he had to make the most of what he had.
I had to hone a lot of my skills because I'm a jack of all trades, master of none developer.
Which is basically learning as many skills as humanly possible.
And Blade Ball started with just me and Vido, with him doing most of the scripting and me doing everything else. Honestly, making Blade Ball was really fun, so it was no problem to hone my skills. It took us a little over a year of on and off development, but a majority of the game was grinded out over one summer with us working all day.
Wow, you guys sacrificed your summer break for that. And thus, Blade Ball was born. The aim of the game was simple. Dodge a moving ball and deflect it to your enemies. But the ball speeds up every second until one victor remains. Chunch and Vido did it. It was day 1 when the game opened, day 2 when Chunch already granted his first update, day 9 when the game hit 1,000 players, and day 23 when the group hit 1 million members, which they doubled in 4 days. But strangely enough, Chunch got less and less active as the game got bigger and bigger. Was he ungrateful? Did he not care about his fans or team? What's the truth behind all this?
Well, back then, it was always fun to go into Blade Ball servers and talk with the community and occasionally give out unobtainable swords. When Blade Ball was at 50 players, everyone knew each other and it was a great time. Like putting all the players in one server and hosting events. But nowadays, it's hard to connect with individual people since the community is so big now.
And how did it get so big so fast? Was it luck or skill on your end?
We executed Blade Ball quite nicely, but TikTok caught wind of it and played a big role. I guess it was easy to fit full 1v1s into quick and cool videos, so it was definitely a combination of luck and skill. It's all about being prepared for future opportunities.
Despite the negativity towards his game, this guy so far seems legit. He wanted to bring something fresh to Roblox, learned everything he could to do it, and eventually made it work with the help of his best friend. And despite his hard work, he wanted him to have all the credit. But because of the game's instant rise and some very bad timing,
I can write pages and pages about harmful misconceptions towards me, but the most common one is, you copied deflect.
Well, that sounds pretty bad. It's an eerily similar game to Blade Ball, but knowing your backstory, it's probably not true.
No. Deflect actually referenced a lot of things from our game after we released, and people thought we copied them. Pro servers, double jumping, crates, and more I can't remember. Generally, the things said about us are greatly exaggerated or blatantly untrue.
But what gave you the strength to still update the game? What's your advice for anyone putting up with hate, especially undeserved hate?
The best way to go is to never reply. Nobody likes to talk to a wall. Too bad I'm a high T Sigma and the haters won't get to me. But don't be mistaken, I also get a lot of funny and kind messages that make my day. Even though I can't reply to all of them, I find comfort knowing that I can rely on people, and I can be relied on, like my friends and my team. Besides, tackling projects is extremely difficult alone.
Now, honestly, I don't know you that well or even what you sound like, but I have a lot more respect for you and I'll be honored if you can share to everyone your main piece of advice when it comes to being successful.
I know this is what every how to become successful guide says, but keep trying and improving yourself, and never underestimate yourself. Hardworking stupidity beats lazy brilliance.
I've never looked at it that way.
And hey, if you don't have time 'cause of school, spend your summers learning skills you find interesting and executing them. Roblox games make a lot more money than people think, so that's a fun one to start with.
Well, thank you Trunch Bunch for sharing your story. I hope we can speak again someday, but now we gotta move on to our next Roblox billionaire. There's still a lot more to uncover.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, so I'm Tencel, and I'm the owner of Slap Battles on Roblox, which has... Okay, I don't know if I should brag about the stats of the game, but I live off my game Slap Battles.
Since he's such a humble guy, I'm gonna brag for him. With over 2 billion visits, Slap Battles easily became a top-earning Roblox game, supporting Tencel and his family.
But back then I had no desire to create stuff on the platform or develop. But back then I didn't really want to develop games, I just wanted to play them.
Which kinda struck me as odd. How did a kid who never cared about creating end up as, you know, a superstar? But most importantly, how could his story finally answer our question?
I was an average player all the way up until 2021.
Ooh, what changed there?
I was going to a programming class, and I thought it was like you'd be taught how to program in the programming class. Then I realized everyone in my class already knew how to program, and I was like, oh, what the hell?
Which must have been embarrassing.
So I talked to one of the people in the class, and they were apparently really good at Roblox programming, and I knew what Roblox was at that point. I got into learning how to code in Lua.
Which is the scripting language Roblox uses to make every single game a reality.
I was inspired by my classmate, Alex OP1000. He inspired me to start making games and taught me a bit about coding as well.
With a newfound love for coding, Tencel immediately got to work.
As I said, I played a lot of games before I started to develop, so I wanted to make games that were like on the same scale as the ones I was playing, and these games had big development teams behind them often. I was imagining like a massive whole game, and I wanted to do it all by myself with next to no experience. I thought I could just make something in like a month or two that was on the same size. But I did not even get close to finishing, and it was also very, very bad in comparison because I was so inexperienced.
You're not good enough. You're starting now. You have nothing to offer.
Fumbling your first move is never a fun experience, but at the very least...
Although I did learn a lot from it, so I wouldn't say it was a waste of time. Just keep trying until you improve and make sure not to aim too high with your ambitions.
Which is pretty counterintuitive, but considering his past, he had to do something different for his next game. So, what's plan B?
In the game, you can go into the arena, and then you have this big glove, you slap people. Every time you slap someone, you gain 1 slap. And the goal is to knock people off the island.
The simplest idea possible.
And when you gain these slaps, you can use them to basically unlock better gloves that deal more knockback and have unique abilities.
And rather than spending months perfecting the game...
It's really horribly coded behind the scenes, because I was practically learning how to do stuff while doing it. In fact, the animation that you see when you slap is a test animation, because I wanted to see if like my script would work. So I just made something in like 10 seconds to see would this theoretically work, and it did, and I just never changed it. But I guess it goes to show, don't overthink the process.
So after a hard week of work, he was confident enough to share Slap Battles to the world. Despite the imperfections, he still believed in it. But we can only hope that players will too.
In the beginning, it didn't even maintain a stable player base. It had maybe 1 or 2 servers.
I guess all hope is lost.
And that's when my friend AlexOP1000 joined and he bought one of those game passes.
W friend. And rather than spending the money on himself,
I would sponsor the game using the Robux I made, and then I would kind of get maybe one full server, and then I would use that Robux if I made anything to sponsor it again, kind of doing a cycle until I had maybe 70 players, and then it kind of self-sustained. And yeah, and the first people that I had playing the game, I would give people who joined the game like a lot of slaps immediately so that they can immediately use some really good gloves. And I would also play my own game and make sure that they were having fun playing it.
But after his friend's gracious gift, another friend stepped in, and for the wrong reasons.
I had like a staff member when Slap Battles was more new, it got really controversial and all the bad stuff really, so we had to kind of kick them from the server and get rid of them and all that.
Oh, and does that frighten you?
I'm not really worried about losing friends if I know them enough and I know that they're good people.
Following the sudden betrayal, Ten made it his mission to show as much love to the community as he can, if he ever gets the chance to. So, after getting a couple dozen players, thanks to your friend, what was the next step to bringing your game to its full potential?
So I didn't really have a plan, I just kind of added what I thought was fun, because at the end of the day I didn't really do it because I thought I would get any success from it. I just found it fun to kind of see people play what I made and interact with all the stuff I created, and then adding more stuff and see their reaction to it. It was like a game to do in itself.
As you said, don't overthink the process. But to truly deliver on this goal, the updates had to be remarkable.
I think one of the funniest updates I made was adding a glove called Mega Rock.
An OP glove that insta-kills anyone who touches it. Which does sound random and dumb, but it's actually very important to Ten's goal.
So I was gonna make it something stupid, like you have to sit in this rock for 1 hour straight and do nothing to get this glove.
That's just torture.
And then my friend was like, nah, do 10 hours. And I was like, okay. just because I thought it was funny, really.
And while this may seem like an absolutely horrible idea that would make players hate him,
didn't even complain really because it wasn't mandatory to get. It's just something you could get. And at the end of the day, if something is really rare, it automatically makes it really valuable. And then when it's really valuable, people want to do much more to get it. It's one of the most iconic gloves in the game, even though you have to sit in a rock for 10 hours to get it.
Ten realized something. Not only did this make players play longer, a very important thing for its growth, but these funny, rare items oddly formed a connection between him and the players. So he did not hesitate to create more and more of these rare, random gloves. Not only did players willingly spend so much time and money for them, but the glove's abilities made for some surreal gameplay.
You can get caught off guard by something really jarring and it'll be really funny as a result. Like, for instance, if you get hit by a bus out of nowhere.
And thanks to the game's imperfections, they were laughing, having fun, making friends. Ten's vision was coming to life. But to strengthen his bond even more, he added theme songs to each glove, like the one you're hearing right now. Every time you fight with a glove, it plays a funny little song to make the game even more immersive. And oh boy, did players vibe with it. But as any game grows, the owner always falls in an inescapable trap.
It's hard to connect with individual people since the community is so big now.
I don't think he was aware of this problem, but a small update he made might have saved him.
I had a chair in the lobby and I would literally just sit there and talk to people who joined, maybe walk around as well. I just wanted to attract players because the money I was making, quote unquote, was so insignificant, it didn't really matter, it was just kind of fun. I just invested literally everything I made, I put back into ads, everything.
And while it may seem lazy that he's still doing this, it's all part of his plan. Well, anti-plan to nurture his game to the max. Now, with a decent player base, he had the chance to bond with even more people.
I've hosted events where, for instance, I'd make like a server with 100 people.
Where he would basically give out rare, unobtainable badges to each of the 100 players. A nice little gift for a small community.
Actually, I think it was 200 people, and I was live streaming it, and it got filled up, and it was pretty fun.
Bruh. And although he didn't have to, and could have spent that time grinding out updates,
I mean, they're just kind of like a little cherry on top, to be honest. People get too caught up in getting optimal retention, optimal session time, and this and that. They'll probably forget about the most important thing, which is to have an actually fun game. Don't overthink the process.
Although progress was being made towards this goal, the main issue was the game itself still felt flat. There wasn't much depth other than slapping people and slapping people and slapping people. Games with this problem have a history of dying out, but with the experience he gained from bonding with his fans, 10 might have found a solution to spice things up. You see, every glove in the game was always related to a meme that's light-hearted, which he knew his fans loved. But the next update would be the polar opposite.
I just tried to make some really absurd stuff. Like there's this guy called Bob, which is like a black blob, like a god sealed away and all that stuff, so yeah.
An evil deity who committed horrible crimes like genocide and cannibalism, and serves as a villain for anyone who steps foot in the game. On paper, this seems like a disturbing idea that would turn players away, because it's the last thing you'd expect. But 10 knew his players well enough to take that risk.
I think it makes it more interesting and fun to play and witness.
Players didn't like it. They loved it. The risk was worth it. Thanks to this mischievous figure, waves of fan art was made, as well as pages and pages of lore behind the character. This wasn't just a PvP game anymore, it was its own universe. Player counts rose, and the community was much more vibrant, which gave 10 a wave of inspiration. So after that update, what was the next move to achieve your full potential once and for all?
To listen to the community and apply whatever they kind of want to see if it improves what they think about the game and makes them want to keep playing, you know, so nurturing your community.
And now, with this massive responsibility, 10 made a dedicated promise to his loving fans.
I gotta update every week, so that's what I gotta do, and that's what I'm doing.
And so, that's what he did, forcing himself to crank out as many updates as humanly possible. New game modes, new characters like Rob, apparently Bob's mortal enemy, and Glubs with abilities that no man has ever thought of. And all of that, week after week after week for the entire year. But as slap battles got bigger, so did 10's fear of letting his fans down.
I gotta update every week, so that's what I gotta do, and that's what I'm doing. So, I mean, that's some pressure. I kind of have to update every week at this point.
And it didn't help that they had higher expectations for the game. So, he needed a second way of cranking out updates, and fast. Other than your fans, how else did you find ideas?
From my dreams.
Bro, how is this even possible?
There's this thing called the plate that goes around the island. It's like a transportation system, and I came up with it because I was dreaming that I was in like a fan game of slap battles, like a ripoff, and they had like a bunch of stuff all over the place. It was actually a train in my dream. I did a very similar thing as a result of waking up and being like, damn, that's really cool. I wish I should have that in my game.
That is actually brilliant. His bond with the game is so strong that he can work on it in his sleep. But at the height of it all, a tiny mistake he made eventually caught up to him.
I was still the only developer of slap battles at the time, but it had gotten really big.
He was so focused on bonding with fans that he forgot to spend time building a team from the ground up. But that wasn't even the worst part.
So I just didn't have time to do both school and work on slap battles at the same time. I mean, if I don't update every week, the fans will probably be very disappointed.
I forgot, you were still a kid at the time.
Yeah, really stressful because there was a lot of homework as well, and then also a lot of developing, so I didn't have any free time at that point.
Players were angrily begging for the next updates, but school got in the way of his promise. 10's game was printing money, so he could drop out. But then again, school is where he found his passion, learned how to code, and met his first friend. But it also prevented him from pushing the game even further and finding a team. But then again, he was heading off to college, which is very important for your future and career, and he doesn't have time to do both.
I just wanted to attract players. At the end of the day, I didn't really do it because I thought I would get any success from it. I gotta update every week, so that's what I gotta do, and that's what I'm doing. So, I mean, that's some pressure. I kind of have to update every week at this point. I mean, if I don't update every week, the fans will probably be very disappointed. Don't overthink the process.
So, he didn't overthink. He followed his heart.
So I think, if I remember correctly, I dropped out about at the end of 2022.
Wow, that is a serious commitment.
I succumb to the pressure and I update every week, but I don't really mind doing it, to be honest.
And with school completely out of his life, he completely relied on his game and players to financially support him, meaning he couldn't mess this up, literally. However,
every now and then I'll add the update that isn't very well received and people get upset, but you know, I try to avoid it, so it's pretty unavoidable in general though.
And although it made him pretty sad, which is perfectly okay, he saw it as a stepping stone, like a wise man once said.
Constructive criticism is when you give feedback that can actually help improve the game. Like, you could do this better or you could do this better, while destructive would be more like, your game sucks.
And with this mindset, he hired fans as testers for the game.
For instance, if I'm making a new glove and I'm testing it with the testers, then they could either be like, this glove is bad or boring or something, or they'll give a constructive feedback like, you could improve this glove by doing this or that, and then I'll do it. Could be adding a new feature to the glove or making it more in depth.
With an honest and loyal team to rely on, he was finally in the right headspace to push his game to its real full potential. Even with all these testers, these upcoming updates seem so much harder to make than any of your previous. How'd you motivate yourself to put that much work?
It's my job at this point. As I said, I dropped out of school, so this is kind of what I do now. I don't really need motivation to work on it. It's fun, so, you know, I'm having fun doing it.
So, throughout the year of 2023, with all the knowledge and passion he gained, and while keeping his weekly promise, he poured his soul into 2 massive updates as a token of appreciation for his loving fans. But will they accept it?
Number 1 would probably be the Bob boss fight, which was a big boss fight.
A perfect way to combine random intense gameplay while continuing Bob's lore, which fans always wanted. And as he streamed the update to all his fans, everything felt perfect.
Please sit down! That had a lot of hype, and we got over 70,000 players in that update.
That is unreal.
The next update would be Null Zone, which is it's like a dungeon kind of thing, a purple dungeon, and they have to kind of navigate through it, and if they make it to the end, they get a unique glove.
So mad. Calm down, bro. I'm very frightened right now.
Welp, you made it.
But without Alex, I don't know, because since he kind of contributed to the first sponsorship, I don't know if I would have gotten any players in the first place to even nurture if it wasn't for him. Definitely did help a lot.
But I think we're forgetting the main point of all this. 2 billion visits. That is no joke.
It was a happy accident. I found it fun to develop. Initially, I didn't have any goals or anything like that. And then eventually, I just kind of slowly got success without even really realizing. I was like, oh.
And what's your main piece of advice for getting that success?
If you have a failure, see it as a stepping stone, because
hardworking stupidity beats lazy brilliance.
It can never really be a bad choice to start learning how to develop on Roblox. If you keep trying, you'll eventually get it, and if you don't, then you'll end up with a very valuable set of skills.
So, out of everything we learned, what truly is the secret to becoming a Roblox billionaire? Well, it's actually none of this. But we do have an answer. You see, all these billionaires had something special to share to the world. A helpful tool, a fun little game mode, a true connection with fans, and they did everything in their power to fulfill that. Burning out, sacrificing summer, or even quitting school, which you shouldn't, by the way. We all have something special to offer in our own unique way. It's just a matter of whether we want to dig deep enough in our hearts and find it. Meaning, there's definitely more billionaires out there with amazing stories to tell, and that could be you one day. So if we somehow get 200k likes, I'll definitely do a part 2 of them. But for now, that's a wrap.